Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and in today's episode we are back in the TBM-930. We haven't flown in quite a while, and so today we're going to do a full flight from Key West, just a quick stop over to Miami, but we're going to be walking through everything I do to prepare the aircraft for flight, including creation of the flight plan and entry into the FMS, as well as all the startup procedures. So hopefully you guys will find some value in this particular video, especially if you are interested in learning how to fly the TBM. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. Okay, so getting right into it, as I said, we are flying from, that's an interesting spot, Key West over to Miami. We're going to be cruising up at 19,000 feet. Got a total fuel on board of 836 pounds. We're going to be departing from Key West using runway 27, flying direct to Carnu. However, using the Echo Yankee Whiskey transition to jump onto the Deval 3, flying into Miami using the ILS 12 approach. Other than that, the only thing we have to worry about is we have 920 pounds of payload on board today. So the first thing we'll do is jump into the aircraft and get it configured for weights and fuel. So stepping back into the simulator, we're going to go to our weights and balances menu here, and we're going to set our payload first at 920 pounds-ish. 929, that works for me. And fuel, we're looking for 836 or thereabouts. I'd like to just get close, 841. I'm happy with that. Perfect. Now let's jump into the seat and start the pre-flight. All right, so jumping into the seat, first thing we're going to do is obviously close the doors. And I am going to warn you guys, with the latest release of the TBM-930 improvement mod, I think the custom cameras are a little weird. So my camera work is going to be a little funky, so bear with me on that. All right, so we want to make sure the doors are locked. Green for lock. Let's clear the yokes out. That way we can see everything. And let's take a quick peek around. So moving our way around, like I said, the cameras are a little funky for me right now, so I'm going to try to get the best view in possible for you all. All right, landing lights are off. All interior lights and exterior lights are off as well. Crash bar is down. Battery is off. Generators are off. Starter switch is set to the off position. Ignition needs to be in the off position for engine start, or pre-flight I should say. Auxiliary boost pumps are off as well. Fuel selection should be set to manual. Autopilot and autopilot trims are off. Emergency locator transmitter set to the arm off position, and oxygen is off as well. Moving down to the forward end of the cockpit here, you want to make sure your air conditioning switch is set to the off position during engine start. All anti-ice and inertial separators are disarmed and disabled. Parking brake is set. Landing gear handle is down. Hot airflow for engine start, we're going to actually want that at the footboard, so we're going to set that now. Pressurization switch should be in the off position. Same with the dump switch, should be closed and off. Your fullest tank should be selected for engine start. However, in this case, I think we're pretty well balanced, so either or will work. Manual override disabled. Throttle in the cutoff position, flaps up and retracted. And alternate static air source is pushed in and closed, as well as all circuit breakers are pushed in. All right. Now let's go back up top here, and we will take a look at getting some electrical power on board here. So we're going to put the crash bar up. Battery comes to the on position. Generator to the on position as well. Pulse lights, nav lights, and come on. Alert everyone around the aircraft know that we are getting ready to rock and roll. And stepping back down to the forward pit here, we want to make sure our MFD is turned on. Doing a lights test of the landing gear. Make sure all landing gear lights are working appropriately. Then do a check down. 3 flashing green indicates the gear is in fact down and locked. From this point here, we'll move upstairs again. See if I can even get close with some of my cameras. I don't know what's going on, man. It's really odd. There we go. All right, and let's start the startup process. Come on, why are you doing? Nope, won't even let me zoom. This is so odd. There it goes. I'm not sure what's going on with the cameras. It's just the cameras that seem to be impacted, luckily. Okay, so ignition should be set to the on position. Auxiliary boost pumps to the on position. Fuel selection remains in manual for engine start, and everything remains as currently set. We're going to go to our starter, and we're going to hit 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi on the starter. Then we're going to move on down here to the MFD, watching the NG percentage. We're looking for 13%. I know I'm talking fast, but this happens pretty quick. At 13%, you're going to take your throttle, give it a click forward, and make sure you get into the low idle position, at which point we'll be continuing to monitor the NG, looking for 53%. At 53%, we'll move the throttle forward into the high idle position and then over into flight idle. All right, so there is 53%. Left click and holding. There's high idle. Now, while holding left click, going to give the right click a tap. That moves the throttle over the gate into the flight idle position. Master caution can be cleared. Engine start complete. We're going to move upstairs for a minute. Ignition should go to the auto position. Auxiliary boost pumps to the auto position. Fuel selection should go to automatic. Autopilot and autopilot trims are on. And oxygen, yes, according to the Real World Pilot's Operational Handbook for the TBM-930, oxygen comes on at engine start. All right, moving on down here, we can now reset our lower panels here. We're going to want air conditioning set as desired. Parking breaker obviously remains set. Inertial separator remains off until taxi. And pitot heat and stall heater can remain off until we're ready for lineup. Pressurization switch needs to go to max diff or auto. Max diff is going to pressurize the aircraft most rapidly. However, that could make things rather uncomfortable for your passengers and crew. Auto obviously will adjust according to altitude in a nice smooth manner. Depending on how fast you climb or descend, you may have to switch this back and forth. So you really want to watch your climb rate or descent rate for that matter. All right. Other than that, we are... Check on engine start. Everything looks good. One more pass on the overhead panel. Make sure we got everything. Looks great. All right, so now let's enter in that flight plan that we were just talking about and get all set up to go. All right, so now to enter in the flight plan with this particular flight plan, it's actually really easy. So we're going to go to the MFD page here. We're going to go to flight plan, add origin. We are at Key West. Destination, we're going to Miami International. Okay, now add en route waypoint. Now we may not necessarily do that because the transition point we're using to get onto the star is actually before our direct route. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about, because this is where you want to sort of watch for things, because it can get a little tricky here. So let me see here. All right, so let me show you guys the route. There's our route right here. Okay. Key West, direct to Carnu, jumping onto the Duval 3. But I want to show you guys something on Navigraph. If we go over to the star, look in the Duval 3, check this out. So first off, here's Key West. That's where we are right now. Actually, we're right here. Excuse me. This is Key West. We're on the International. So Key West is actually a transition point. You fly that. Jumps onto Carnu, and then there's Duval. Okay, so in our case, what we're actually going to do when we come back down to the simulator is we're going to select our destination. We're going to select the arrival. We're going to find the Duval 3. Remember, Echo Yankee Whiskey, or Key West in this case, is actually the transition point, which is a VOR. We're departing, or excuse me, we're going to be arriving on runway 12. And we're going to hit load. And now, if we go back to our flight plan, there's Carnu. So even though when we look at the chart, or our flight plan, it shows direct to Carnu, then getting onto the Duval 3. Carnu's actually a part of the Duval 3. So always check with Navigraph and verify how your charts are actually set up, because you may find that one of your direct waypoints actually already exists in the star and therefore saves you a step. So that's really the only thing we need to do other than set up the approach. So let's do that now. So for this, we're going to go back to the main menu, go to our flight plan. No, I'm sorry, go to procedures, select approach. ILS 12, and the Dolphins approach or transition is our transition onto the approach, and I can show you guys why we came up with that. There's actually two different reasons. So if we go back to Sim Brief and scroll down to the bottom, there's DHP right there, our final fix before we jump at Miami International there. However, we can also see it on Navigraph If you look right here. Okay, so we know that is the final fix. The final fix before the approach, which is the next phase, is your transition point. Now, normally we would be expecting vectors onto the approach, but in our case, we're not using any kind of ATC service today, so that's why we're following it, the instructions based on the chart. We don't have any goofy instructions, nothing to worry about as far as any restrictions that we have to be familiar with. So it's just a matter of flying the route in. Remember, guys, if you guys are interested in a very detailed process, I believe it's from, I can't remember where the flight plan from, but I know you're flying to Denver, Colorado. In the TBM-930, I have a full pictorial guided PDF guide for the TBM-930 that can be found on the Patreon site. It also breaks down some performance charts to help you set up the correct rotation speeds as well. So it's got some neat information in it, but all of this stuff is broken down too, and that's a much larger flight plan, so there's many more steps that are included in the PDF guide when it comes to flying the TBM-930. All right, so approach. Oops, I thought we selected that. There we go. Hit load. That helps. Cool. All right. So with our flight plan now loaded in, the next thing we can do is go to the home page, set our speed bugs. Now again, this information is in the tutorial guide, but based on our weight, we should be right around 6,800 pounds if memory serves. 6,300 pounds, it still falls in the same. Yep, so we're going to be looking at about 75 knots at rotation. Throw that on, and we have best rate and best speed. And we can go ahead and turn the approach bug on now as well. But we'll probably recalculate the approach speed just to make sure we're on point. And let's see if there's anything I'm missing. I don't think there's anything else that I'm too concerned with for today's particular flight. So let's do this. Oh, what happened there? Why are we looking at all the screens? You're killing me, Smalls. Like I said, the camera... See, like, why? Why did it come way over here? That doesn't even make sense. It's killing me, man. I don't know why the cameras are doing this. It's really frustrating. It's like my favorite plane to fly. All right, so we have our flight plan entered. Let's get this rolling before the cameras can drive me nuts any further here. We want to set our barometric pressure, simulating that we have received our ATIS information. We also want to come down to our PFD settings. Oh, wrong aircraft. That's a G1000. We're going to come down to the NavCom radios. We're going to find our transponder code. Simulate, we've been given a code of 2005. And we're going to turn the transponder on. We'll be sure to set it to altitude reporting before we depart. But there's our transponder code set. Barometric pressure is set. Initial altitude. We're actually going to go all the way up. We are unrestricted. That's 1,900 feet. Let's keep going. There's got to be a faster way to do this. I suppose I could have bound the controls and it would have been. I feel like they slowed this down. I don't remember it being quite this slow. I remember that if you like really started moving fast on the mouse wheel, that this wouldn't happen, but that's all right. Oh, there's 19,000. Flight director is turned on. We'll set our heading mode. I just like to match it up as I line up with the runway, but we'll make sure we have that set. But if you really want to, you can use your Navigraph charts and preset it. Let's go ahead and do that now for display purposes, I guess. And where are you? There we go. In this case, we're going to come back to the Key West chart. Alright, and we're going to take a look at the taxi port. It's the easiest one to use. Zooming in, we are departing from runway 27, so final runway heading is 273 degrees. So, coming back to our sim. Let's go back the other way. Yeah, this is all taking forever. Goodness gracious, come on. Come on, we're almost there. Come on, you can do it. The little wheel that could. All right, 273 degrees. We also want to make sure that our CDI is set to, oh, let's back up. That's what was throwing me off. Set to the FMS. So FMS is set, speed bugs are set, altitude is set, altimeter is set, runway heading course is set. And I think other than that, we are ready to roll, guys. We can also set our initial speed for the flight level change. We'll set that to our best speed. 124 knots, our best rate. Good. All right. And other than that, doing one last quick sweep, checking everything out. Pressurization set, cockpit set, parking brake. All right, let's go ahead and turn the inertial separator on. We're getting ready for taxi. All right, looking golden. Let's get out to the runway. Let's do some flying, shall we? Okay, so master caution, clear the warning that the inertial separator is on is all that was about. And I'm going to go ahead and start the head tracker. There's that loose noggin. There we go. See, and now that I've done that, I wonder something. That is so weird. You know what? I wonder if it was my head tracker the whole time. Yeah, my cameras are working great now. I have no idea what that was about. That's really interesting. I've never seen... So my tracker... Oh, you know what? I did a flight before this. I wonder if Microsoft Flight Simulator was just looking for it still. All right, parking brake released. That's good news. Oh, wait. This is always the hard part. Yep, I got to switch the camera. That taxi light is a real pain to get to. I suppose I could have used any one of the really awesome tools that I have that would have grabbed that. Let me zoom this back in. Control and 1. There. Saved to the new camera view. Now things are working correctly again. That was so weird. Whoa. Rudder pedals are working. They're working just fine. Perfectly fine. We're fine now, thanks. How are you? Name the movie. That's your goal today. Name the movie. Yeah, we just had a minor weapons malfunction, and but we have it all taken care of now. Everything's fine. Everything's fine now. How are you? Name the movie. It'll tell me if you guys are real nerds or not, just like me. Oh, we got someone coming in. Did he just bounce? That looked like a really rough landing, ironically enough, at TBM. It looked like a really nasty landing there. I hope that was AI. Alright, as we are approaching our wonderful taxiway here. Do. Getting ready to fly. Brakes. Alright, let's go to our transponder. Let's set the altitude reporting back to the on position. I'm going to step upstairs a minute. Normally I would do this as we roll, but it's a lot easier because I have to do the camera change. And like I said, a lot of times I use all my buttons, switches, gadgets, gizmos. But landing lights on, by the way, is what I just did there. But when I'm trying to like show you guys things, it doesn't make any sense to use my controls. Let's do... that, and we also set flaps now for takeoff. Do not set your flaps for takeoff until you get to the runway. Reason being is they sit so low to the ground that you take risk of any kind of debris popping up and hitting the engines. Alright, and final heading is matching up with our current runway heading, so we're good there. Inertial separator stays on till we're in clear skies, so a few thousand feet, and we can go ahead and turn that off and we'll gain a lot of power back. But let's go ahead and set takeoff torque. Looking for about 96%. I have a throttle detent on my Warthog, so it gets kind of weird going over the top of it. Releasing them brakes. Right about there. Little shallow. Whoa! Alright, got a little bit of a crosswind there, pushing the aircraft over. Looking for 75 knots. There it is. Nose up. Ooh, baby. There's that crosswind. Mercy. Look at that. Look at that. Positive rate gears coming up. Ooh, doggy. Got some good wind. That is what you call crabbing. Mercy. Let's try to get back on that. Alright, let's start steering towards our VOR here. going to reduce our rate of climb to match our best speed here. Following the flight directors at this point. Pull the power back now. Oh, come on, baby. It's that detent in my throttle that keeps messing me up. Said in the beginning of the video, it's been a while. I like to fly it for a little bit. Flaps up. Made that a lot easier. I thought I had already hit it, but I just looked down, saw the indicator still down. I normally do flaps up right about 100 knots. Trying to trim us for this takeoff. Every time I let go of the stick, she really dips down. Everything is really sensitive, and I was noticing that earlier. And the flight directors are not responding. I hope our plane isn't broken, guys. At least we have the CDI working, but the flight director should have banked over with the aircraft. Alright, let's make sure our autopilot system is working. So we want yaw damper on, autopilot on, and nav mode set. Okay, there they go. They worked. Okay, for some reason I remember them working before. Now, we are in clear skies relatively. I think we'd be okay to turn the inertial separator off. So we'll go ahead and do that now. What you're looking for with the inertial separator is any chance of debris, whether it be icing or heavy clouds, things like that. Anything that could get sucked into the intake and damage the engine is why we want the inertial separator on. So. Alright, we got a good climb out. Everything is looking good. On our way all the way up to 19,000. At 10,000 feet, landing lights will come off. At 18,000, we'll be changing our barometer back to the standard 2.930. And then we'll be on cruise. Once we get to the cruise altitude, because it's so short, really, this flight, we'll take a look at setting up the aircraft for VNAV calculations to make our descent much easier to manage. Alright, so I'll catch you guys in just a few minutes here. Alright, we are now passing through 18,000 feet, so we're going to give our barometers a quick click. That sets the altimeter automatically back to 2.930. And now we're going to switch over to Navigraph for just a minute. I want to show you guys here how we're going to set our VNAV calculation. So what we're essentially looking for here is we're going to take a look at the Deval 3 approach, or arrival. And you can see here at Weaver, we have an altitude restriction. Now, this is for turbojets, truth be told. However, we're still going to use this 10,000 foot altitude restriction because that keeps us at a nice spot for the approach. Now, if we can find something even further, let's take a look at our flight plan here. Dive on down. Don't know if it gave me the approach. Okay, cool. At Gilra, or Gloria? Gloria. Gloria. Don't ask. I don't know. Gloria. If we go back to Navigraph, take a look at our ILS 12 approach. And here we see Gloria. We need to be at 3,000 feet. So that's actually what I'm going to use as my target. I think that's going to be better. So we're going to go 3,000 here. Okay. And then I'm still going to also enter in Weaver at 10,000. Okay. So now we have our altitude restrictions put into place here. We have our target set up for Gloria. First, the VNAV calculations will come in. We're going to go VNAV enabled from the VNAV menu. And we can see now our top of descent is already at 3 minutes. So in 3.5 minutes, we will begin descending the aircraft, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that based on the information that gets displayed here. Oops, darn it, hate when I do that. Let me go back down so you guys can see what we did. So if I go to the home page, we We go to flight plan. I clicked on Weaver, clicked on the altitude box, entered 10,000, hit enter. Then I went down to Gloria, set our 3,000 foot, hit enter. Then I went to VNAV, hit VNAV enabled, and now here's where we can see our top of descent is now at 2 minutes and 55 seconds. A little bit less than, actually, because we're ticking away a bit faster than a second. I imagine we have a pretty good tailwind is what I'm willing to bet, and we do indeed, 33 knots at tailwind. Alright, so in about a minute here, we're going to get a display right here on the PFD letting us know that we are approaching the top of descent. The other thing we can do is also pull some power back. We're also, well, 86%. That's actually not too terrible. I'm actually going to leave that alone, truth be told. Now, before we start our top of descent, we'll probably turn the inertial separator back on. So let's go ahead and do that because we're getting close here. And the reason being is it looks like we're going to come down into some cloud cover. And anytime, like I said, we're passing through clouds, anything like that, we're going to want to make sure that we have that inertial separator on to protect the engine from any kind of debris that may come into the engine. Okay. Should be just about there. About a minute 50 left. I always push the camera so far forward because I worry about how well you guys can see on the screen. But then, like, when I go to look around the windows, like, look at that. Looks like I'm, like, plastering my face into it. We can clear that master caution for the inertial separator. Minute 18. Let's go ahead and set our initial target altitude. And there's our 1 minute warning, top of descent within 1 minute. And actually, I'm going to set all the way down to 3,000 feet. Now, our touchdown zone elevation is 8 feet, so we'll literally be going all the way down. But let's see here. Now 35 seconds to start our top of descent. I'm going to reduce the power to about 40% engine power. Start slowing us down a bit. And you can see our first restrictions already showing here at 10,000. Alright, 15 seconds. We're going to go ahead and start a little bit early. And we're looking for a descent rate of about 1,400 feet per minute. So let's go ahead and get that nose down. And so the idea here is to adjust your vertical speed in a way. So this is the vertical speed target. Okay, this is our descent rate and descent rate target. And this is the current glide path. Okay, so we want to try to keep our current altitude in line with the glide path and our descent rate in line with the target descent rate. That's the idea, because we don't have true VNAV ability in the TBM-930 at this time. Hopefully that's something that we'll get later on down the road, but at the moment, unfortunately, we don't. So now that we're more or less center in there, give or take, that's usually why I start the descent a little early to sort of get ahead of that curve. Makes it a little easier to manage. And you'll have to adjust it here and there, but it still makes the descent far more easier to manage. You have a visual guide to sort of go by to get an idea of whether or not you're too high or too low. And it really does help out quite a lot. So I do recommend using this as often as you can. All right, but we have started our descent, and I'll catch you guys right about the time that we get to Weaver. Once we get down to that 10,000 foot mark is when we'll talk again. The other thing I did want to remind you guys is shortly after I stopped that video, it dawned on me that we were below 18,000 feet. So obviously I needed to hit the B key on my keyboard, or so however means you want to use ATC. But make sure that you get your current barometer, and then we'll check it again when we get closer to Miami. All right, now just to show you guys real quick here, we are approaching Weaver. Zoom in a little bit here. We're about 5 miles out, 3 miles out, looks like. Now, if you look up, you can see we got this really odd behavior. I love how, oh, top of descent. That's our next calculation for the 3,000 feet. Now, we're actually going to change things here a little bit. After we go famine, I'm going to quote-unquote simulate that we have been given permission to go directly to Gloria. Now from there, so what I'm going to do is after famine is I'm actually just going to activate the approach mode or approach phase, which should take us directly on target. It just takes a few steps out. Now you probably wouldn't do that because you have an airspace right here, so I doubt that would probably be legit. Let's slow that down a little bit. Actually, we don't really need to slow that down. I think we need to stay right on course here. Anyway, the nice thing about simulation purposes is, like, when you guys see things like this, like, that's probably really unrealistic, which is exactly why we saw in the Navigraph charts that this would typically, you'd be vectored in at this point. So once we passed famine, ATC would be, in a real world scenario, ATC would give us vectors onto the approach. So they'd have us turn, X degrees at X altitude, and then steer us onto the approach. So there we are now going to DHP. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to my MFD. I'm going to go to my procedures page. I'm going to go to the approach. Oh, actually, that was it right there. Cancel. Don't do that. You can do it from here, but there's an easier way. So I'm going back. So again, procedures, activate approach. And it's actually still wanting me to go to DHP, and I don't want to do that. So in that case, we're going to tell it a different route. So we're going to take DHCP and let's see here. Trying to remember how I edit that. Oh, wait, that's why. Stand by. Let's come on down a little bit. Let's go to Gloria and activate leg to the waypoint. And that should steer us directly to where we want to be. Nope, it's going to turn the aircraft around. You son of a gun, let's go direct. There we go. Okay. One of these days I'll get it all right, I promise. Ooh, that's a cool shot. Look at that. Wow. And that's why we have the inertial separator. Dude, that is a really pretty picture. Holy crap. Let's see that from the outside. I wish I could have gotten a screenshot of that. I missed it. The scenery in this sim gets me very often. Not usually like that, though. Like, that was one of those ones, like, you pick your head up and like, whoa! Like, where did that big ball of gorgeousness come from? Alright, so now, looks like we might be descending a little fast. Alright, so finally, we need to take a look at Navigraph again and verify our nav radios are set up correctly. So we are looking for 108.9 with a final approach course of 124 degrees. So let's get back into the cockpit. Oops, helps if I hit the right button. Let's go to our nav radio. And audio and radios. Nav 1. What did I say? 108.9 is indeed set on nav 1, which is great. Alright. Now we're still about 12 miles out from Gloria here. By the way, I can't remember if I said it. Make sure you guys turn your landing light on below 10,000 feet. That is important. Okay, so you can see here we are tracking the ILS for runway 12 over at Miami. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and switch the CDI over to the localizer. And you can see that it's also being tracked. We have our DME information as well as the frequency locked in. The aircraft is now on the approach. Activate the approach mode. And let's roll in. Autobots, let's roll. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with me today. It's not even Friday yet. All right, and we made our 3,000 foot mark. So at this point, we need to make sure. Select the MFD. That we are now descending at about 1,000 feet per minute. All right, so now we're going to set the target altitude to 800 feet for the missed approach altitude in case we have to call out a missed. But I don't think we will. I think we're going to be good. We're inside 10 miles. I'm going to start slowing us down a bit. $173 knots. Let's go flaps 1. Just dawned on me we got way below the glide slope. When did I hit the vertical speed button? Maybe you guys can tell me because I can't freaking remember. Glad I caught that. That would have been bad. We were about to hit the ground. So this is why I leave all of my mistakes in the videos as well. I like to show you guys the good stuff, but you know what? Especially on the simulator where you know your real life isn't on the line or that of anybody else's. Makes it real easy to make those silly mistakes. Excuse me. Alright, landing gear coming down. There's the glide slope. And the aircraft reacquired. Good. Alright, now bringing us way back. Looking for 85 knots on the approach. Below 120 knots, we can go full flaps. I think I'm going to take control of the aircraft. We're a little above. Yaw damper needs to come off. We're a little above the glide slope. So I'm going to get that nose down a bit so we can get our approach speed. Keep coming down, baby. Slow it down.
500.
Yes, ma'am. There we go. Nice and solid there. A little bumpy. Although I probably should have reversed our runway. Just dawned on me I'm landing with a tailwind, but that's alright. We're going to continue. Whoa, baby. There was an emergency, and we had to land with the tailwind. We didn't have enough gigawatts to go around again. Yeah, that's it. That's what it was. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's all about the gigawatts. Plus, I got this. Pfft, tailwind. Bring it. How's that for a greaser? Yeah. And then he can't stay on the center line. Blows it. But the main touchdown was cool. That sucked. That's what I get for getting cocky. Greased it off center line. If you can't have fun, what's the point in doing it, right? All right, I immediately retract my flaps as soon as I know that I'm exiting. Let's clear the runway. All right, and visually make sure the flaps did in fact retract. Let's step upstairs for a second. We want to make sure taxi light is now set. Strobe light is... Oops. When did I turn the strobe light off? Gosh, I'm all over the place, man. Let's turn some panel lights on. It's getting a little dark out. All right. Check. Good. All right. Inertial separators on. Taxi set. Okay, we're good. Let's taxi over to our gate here. All right. And we're just going to park it over here. We're dropping some execs off over here at Latham here. That's what we're pretending today. These brakes are touchy as hell. All right. Yep. Parking brake is set. And normally you would let this sit in high idle for about 20 seconds. But we're just going to go straight to cutoff. Flight director's off. Initial separator off. Pitot heat stall warnings off. Pressurization off. I like to turn the AC off, get it ready for the next flight. All right, we're just doing a quick check before we go upstairs and shut everything else down. All right, oxygen off. Autopilot trims off. Auxiliary boost pumps off. Ignition off. Fuel selection set to manual. Cabin lights off. Taxi light off, and crash bar down. And that, my friends, is our flight in the TBM-930. Made a couple mistakes. Again, that's the danger of simulation, is that you get a little comfortable being able to do so. But that is also why I leave all of my mistakes in the video. So hopefully you guys learn just as much from the things that I did right as the things that I do wrong. That's why I always make it a point to also call them out when I do something wrong. So anyway, guys, as always, stay safe and healthy. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.